Hachette Audio presents Robert Ludlum's The Patriot Attack, a Covert One novel. Written by Kyle Mills. Read by Jeff Woodman. Prologue. Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Plant, northeastern Japan. March 11th, 2011. Dr. Hideki Ito felt the floor shift and braced himself against the elaborate control console in front of him. He waited for the earthquake to subside, reminding himself that the structure had weathered a number of powerful tremors 2 days before with no issues. Still, he could feel the tension creeping into his stomach, the way it always did when the earth decided to move. There was no reason for concern, he told himself again. The general had chosen to shut down Reactor 4 and use it as a research facility, ostensibly because of its ability to contain a radiation leak in the face of just these kinds of shocks. It wasn't radiation they were asking it to hold in check, though. The work Ito had dedicated his life to was far more dangerous and difficult to control. The vibrations seemed reluctant to subside as they had in the past, and he glanced nervously behind him. The room itself was unremarkable, a 9-meter cube of treated concrete lined with insulated pipes of every imaginable diameter. The only access was through a small titanium hatch centered between tables covered in computer equipment. His 2 research assistants had pulled back from their keyboards and sat holding the edges of their chairs, feet spread wide to keep from toppling to the rubber-coated floor. The young man had the same stoic expression he'd been wearing since Ito had recruited him 2 years ago. The woman, a brilliant postdoc recently coaxed from the University of Tokyo, was searching the stark bunker with quick bird-like movements of her head. Looking for cracks, Ito mused sympathetically. He felt compelled to do the same thing 1,000 times a day. The elderly physicist faced forward again, squinting through the 10-centimeter thick glass at the tiny room beyond. At its center was a secondary glass enclosure containing samples of concrete, plastic, and steel. Interspersed were organic materials, various dirt and stone specimens, as well as a few carefully chosen plants. And hovering above it all was a disinterested white rat, stretching lazily on one of the robotic arms that serviced the enclosure. The electron microscope reacted to the joystick in Ito's hand as he tried to compensate for the continuing tremors and maneuver it over a patch of moss. The deep green color suggested that it, like the rat, had been unharmed by his experiments. Of course, that hypothesis would have to be confirmed at the atomic level. To the naked eye, none of the human-made materials in the enclosure had suffered any damage either. The deeper truth, though, was very different. With the scope finally over its subject, Ito was able to examine its fundamental structure on a monitor set into the wall. It looked precisely as it always had, a thriving biological specimen unaffected by the war being silently fought around it. After so many years of failure, Ito was having a difficult time adjusting to his recent string of triumphs. Were they real? Or was there a fatal error hidden somewhere in the thousands of calculations he'd made? Were his carefully designed safety protocols as foolproof as they seemed? Was his sense of control just an illusion? The euphoria he'd experienced when he first realized that he was influencing the fundamental forces of nature had slowly turned into a sense of dread. Had Einstein felt this way when his equations were used to create the bombs that had been dropped on Ito's own country so many years ago? Had Einstein understood that, while intoxicating to explore, nature would never allow itself to be mastered by something so trivial as the human mind? As if reacting to his thoughts, the intensity of the earthquake began to grow. This time, though, something was different. Within a few seconds, Ito was struggling to stay upright, even with both hands gripping the console in front of him. The roar of the tremors filled his ears, making it impossible to understand the high-pitched shouts of his new assistant. A pipe snaking across the ceiling burst, showering him with a stream of frigid seawater powerful enough to finally knock him off his feet. He crawled across the heaving floor toward a cut-off.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?